quarterfinals. And where we're going to start is with the Houston Rockets defeating the Golden State Warriors. Really grimy, ugly, hideous basketball game in a lot of ways. If you like offense, if you like defense, it was splendid. It was beautiful. It was really fun. And we're absolutely going to dive into the tape and talk about how Houston came out in this game, was super aggressive, attacked Golden State with what they were doing offensively, and took advantage of some of the personnel they had on the court. Then in the second half, Steve Kerr adjusted, started to do things a little bit differently, got on top of the Rockets and started to take advantage. And then finally, we will talk about the closing and the ending of this, but that's actually where I want to start. Is the Houston Rockets beat the Golden State Warriors 91-90. And there's a sequence at the end of this game that I think was like kind of indicative of everything that Houston has been about this season. Just an incredibly tough basketball team, right? They're sitting here at 16-8, maybe 17-8 now, given that win. And they're 17-8 now because of their defense, their hustle, their athleticism, their tenacity. All of it is just on full display in this game to me. And nowhere was that more apparent than in the final sequence of this game, where Jalen Green, a guy that has been better defensively this year. I think that Houston, by and large, doesn't have any catastrophic defenders by any stretch, but still probably their weakest defender on that team. Fred VanVleet's really good at fighting through screens, communicating. Şengün has improved. We'll talk about Şengün defensively in this game. I thought that there were some issues there that I worry about in a playoff high leverage setting that, we'll talk through. Dylan Brooks has been borderline all defense this year. Amen Thompson, certainly Tari Eason deserve some votes for all defense as well. But Jalen is the guy that, offensively has been volcanic at times, hasn't been great other times offensively. But more than anything, what I found so indicative of what this team has been about this year is that it's Jalen Green who gets on the deck, wins a loose ball at the end of this game, gets fouled. The more I watched it, at first I thought it was like a bad call, and I don't love that call in the context of this game. This was an incredibly physical game. It was one where the referees let a ton of hand checks go, let a ton of physicality on the perimeter go. I would prefer that they let those guys kind of play that out based off of what we've seen, but it was kind of a dumbass play by Jonathan Kuminga to just dive on Jalen Green in the way he did. Jalen wins that loose ball. They try and call a timeout. They don't get it. He goes to the line, calmly knocks down 2 free throws. And it's the biggest moment of his career, doing the thing that Houston fans and general NBA evaluators have been asking him to do for so long, and that he started to show strides of this season. Go down into the dirty areas, win loose balls, be aggressive on defense, be physical, be willing to embrace contact. Sometimes at the rim, he doesn't really do that. This was a huge moment, I think, for Jalen Green tonight. I still have a lot of questions on if he's efficient enough offensively, the decision-making, can he shoot the ball, everything like that. But I loved that moment tonight for Jalen Green. I loved him getting that singular moment to be able to make those game-winning free throws after winning that loose ball. Having said that, I didn't love the way this game was coached on either side, if I'm being honest. I think it was completely insane for reasons we'll talk about here in a second when we dive into the tape. For Steve Kerr to start Gary Payton II in this game. Gary Payton II can't shoot. Houston, as much, if not more than any team in the league, consistently puts its center on non-offensive threats who can't shoot. And in the first half, it completely bogged down everything the Warriors wanted to do on offense. Then in the second half, Steve Kerr did a good job adjusting. He came into the second half with a plan. They're going to use Gary Payton II more as a screener. They're going to use him as a cutter. They're going to utilize him in different ways. From that point, I thought Ime Udoka didn't adjust quick enough. They were hammering Alperen Şengün in those situations by setting screens particularly high up the court, by getting Gary Payton II on the move. They should have just gone smaller at that point, in my opinion. Look, these games are hard. These things are flying so quickly at you. And we're going to talk about a non-shooter bogging everything down later in this thing as well when we talk about Andre Jackson Jr., a guy that I love, but Doc Rivers' decision to start him in that game against Milwaukee, or a game against Orlando for Milwaukee, I'm sorry, almost cost the Bucks that game too. Because with these non-shooters, you have to have a plan. And I think that's where maybe we can dive into the tape. Is talking about non-shooters in the playoffs or in playoff settings like this, and how you have to utilize them. And how I think this game was a really good encapsulation of how important it is to have a plan to utilize non-shooters in certain ways. So let's get our screen up here. And let's get our pen up here so we can draw on the screen. Where are we at? Should be somewhere. There we are. Okay. So I just love the way the Rockets came out defensively in this game. Super aggressive, fought over the top of screens. You can just already see here, look at all of this space here between Payton and Şengün. This is setting up to be an empty side ball screen. I'm going to have to use blue, I'm realizing, not pink. This is setting up to be an empty side ball screen. Şengün is just all the way over here already. Just all the way over. Draymond is not a great finisher through multiple bodies. And oh, by the way, here, Jabari Smith does a fantastic job on this rep. He and Fred, I would imagine Fred's yelling out, stay, 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 because they do like to switch a decent amount. And Fred is a very good communicator on defense. He's seeing that this is going to be a ghost with Steph pretending like he's going to set a screen and then just kind of sliding through. Jabari fights over, gets up over the top, does a great job here, gets through the screen, finishes the play, forces the turnover. So here, I think this is like in semi-transition where we've got Şengün on Draymond Green here. Get into a quick early DHO with Draymond realizing that Şengün is guarding him. A quick exchange on the backside here. And just watch Brooks and Green communicate through this. Quick. But then watch Jabari Smith here. Jabari Smith is the one guarding Gary Payton II. Quick pass as Şengün works his way back in to recover to Draymond. That means Jabari Smith has to tag in here. Absolutely has to tag in. He would have to tag in even if this player was a non-shooter. But this should be just like a wide open, easy three-pointer for a team that has a real shooter in the corner. Instead, Şengün can just like slowly close out. Not really worry about it. Throw up a clap. And Gary Payton's going to absolutely airball this ball. So here, great on-ball defense. peel it again. You can watch Fred here communicate. So Şengün ends up sticking here. Watch Fred VanVleet here on the backside as he's guarding kind of this space here with Curry, knowing that Şengün might need a little bit of help speed-wise, and guarding Jonathan Kuminga here. And watch him communicate just to say, hey, I will take Steph as Steph comes around. And Şengün does a good job communicating, hey, you go with Steph, I will take Kuminga. And Kuminga, also not a great shooter. The biggest problem beyond Gary just not being a shooter at all is that really you have three non-shooters on the court. I know Draymond's shooting decent from three this year, and I know Kuminga has been a little bit hot recently, but teams just aren't going to guard all of those guys at the end of the day. They feel good about it. And maybe the Warriors will hurt them, but like teams will play those odds. Here, just a great job by Jabari Smith. Then you get to see here this communication on this switch. You see Jabari point up. You see Brooks slide up, take Buddy Hield. Jabari is just going to be comfortable taking Steph. You can see that point there from Jabari. And then again, what I want to call out here is that because this is a non-shooter and Gary Payton is off the court at this point, Fred can just slide over and help without any recourse. And then this ends up being a kick out. Brooks just decides, I'm just going to let this guy shoot this little mid-range shot. Kuminga. That's it. So again, now we're Lindy Waters. We have more shooters out on the court, right? Switch. And they're just fighting through and plugging through everything here off the ball. And this is what makes the Rockets so difficult to deal with defensively. I mean, this lineup is probably, for me, I would say that this has a real case as being the best switch lineup in the league right now. You have Tari Eason and Jabari Smith, who can both deal with all but like the biggest centers in the league, right? You have Dylan Brooks and Amen Thompson, both of whom are all defense caliber wings. And then you have Fred VanVleet, who's a great communicator, who fights through screens, does a great job using his leverage, battles, talks constantly. This is a fantastic switchable defense. And they all fight. They all scratch. Just a perfect rep there. Absolutely perfect. This one just early on. Warriors are going to run kind of a ram action here for Lindy Waters to potentially come up and set a screen for Podziemski. No issues. Fred and Amen just switch it. Then at the main screen point here, these two talk through it. Amen still goes with Lindy Waters. You have these two talking through an action here where Buddy Hield's trying to come around a little screen from Kevon Looney. Jabari does a great job here getting through that screen. They switch it. Now you've got Fred VanVleet on Kevon Looney. You see Amen fly over and help here. They're just so connected. They're so sharp on defense. Everything that they do is just really, really difficult to deal with. And now you've got Tari Eason just absolutely digging into your handle with his length and athleticism. And now this ball has to go out here. With 4 seconds left on the shot clock, the Warriors are 35 feet from the rim. Now you've got Brooks all up in his space. Shot clock violation. They're just a sick defense, an absolutely sick defense. And this lineup particularly is just really, really difficult to manage. They come down and they just can guard anybody, right? You've got Fred on Buddy Hield. You've got a guard here in Amen Thompson on Kevon Looney. You've got Jabari Smith on Lindy Waters. You've got Tari Eason on Pajemski, right? They can pick up anybody in transition. You don't have to worry about matchups. Then Tari and Jabari switch this off. You've got Dylan Brooks just getting all in Kuminga's space here. Turnover. It's just really hard to deal with them defensively. They're a really, really tough defensive team. They're physical. We've talked about this all year on this channel. They just do such a good job. Just look at the way they talk through this action here. This is really fun. So you've got Dylan Brooks on Steph here. You've got one screen coming. You've got another screen coming. So many opportunities for breakdowns here. Brooks switches. Jalen switches. Jabari shoots out. Denies Steph. Gary Payton does the right thing. He cuts against Brooks. But again, just not a guy that's super comfortable around the basket. Gives Brooks time to recover. And then you get this crazy recovery play after Jabari gets beat. Steph coming through here. Jabari's just trailing a little bit. And just look at him in. He's looking right at this. He sees that Steph is coming. And he's going to pick up his teammate with an insane block where his head's at the basket. They just fly around. They are so fun to watch. Houston is probably, for me, the defense I enjoy watching most right now. Fred is capable of dealing with these matchups against bigs that aren't fantastic post-up players by NBA standards. Trace was a really good post-up player in college, but Fred's really strong. Then you've got help coming down everywhere. Help here, help here, help here. Amen flies out. He knows that the reason that he flies by here, or flybys, whatever that terminology is that he knows that Brooks has to be here and he has to stick to Pat Spencer. Shout out Pat Spencer playing in this game for some reason. And Brooks peels off like he's supposed to. Gets a piece of the ball, blocks the shot. Kuminga was really bad in the first half in this game. Really, really rough. He played a overall not great game, but I thought that the first half was really, really rough. My Dewar jeans are truly my favorite piece of clothing that I own right now. They sent me out a pair of jeans and they are fantastic. I've been wearing these things everywhere that I can whenever I go out of the house. They are so comfortable. They look great. They feel great. They're stylish. They're versatile. You can wear them in a lot of different situations. They are fantastic, fantastic jeans. Dewar is built for doing with styles of stretch performance denim and lifestyle apparel for everyone in every season. Dewar has you covered for the colder winter months with fabrics like a fireside denim, which is interwoven with fleece for warmth without too much bulk. Plus, Dewar's clothes are sustainably crafted to last. They're going to be a staple in my closet for years. I am going to try and get them to send me more clothes out, in all honesty, because they have been so, so, so good. I love my Dewars, and I'm sure you will too. Check out Dewar's flagship stores in LA or Denver, or shop online at shopdewar.com/game theory. That's shopdeuer.com/game theory. Right now, my listeners are going to get 20% off your first purchase when you use that exclusive URL. Don't wait. Get 20% off at shopdeuer.com/game theory. This episode of Game Theory is brought to you by BetterHelp. This month is all about gratitude, and there's someone that we don't often think about and thank enough: ourselves. Sometimes it's hard to remind ourselves that we're trying our best to make sense of everything. Look, in this world, it is not easy. Here's a reminder to send some thanks to the people in your life, and that does include yourself. I'm someone who's absolutely gone to therapy in the past, particularly when I got diagnosed with ADHD. It's helped me immensely to understand myself, understand particularly how to put boundaries up with my interests, how to put boundaries up with work. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online. It's designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Let the gratitude flow with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/game theory today and get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, BetterHelp.com/game theory. Now we're going to get into the adjustments, right? You've got Şengün back out there with Gary Payton. So this looks like they're trying to get into a split action. This is the way that they love to do it. You're going to have Draymond get here onto the block. And then GP2 is going to come this way. Steph is just being denied so far away from the rim here by Brooks that it's really hard for Steph to get anywhere. For some reason, Şengün, I think, I'm pretty comfortable with this matchup personally. I understand why he's helping because, again, he's guarding Gary Payton II. But Payton, 45 cuts here within the action. And Şengün just doesn't do a good enough job walling up. So now we're using second set of the second half here. Early screen from Kuminga. Ball is going to go here to Payton. And what do we know about the way that the Rockets are guarding this? We know that the Rockets are going to switch Brooks onto Curry here, right? That's going to give Kuminga all the leverage in the world. And by giving the ball to Payton here, out at the top while he's on the move, Şengün's natural reaction is going to be to follow him a little bit. And it's going to give Kuminga the leverage to be able to dive to the basket here. This is a really sharp, simple play. Jabari Smith does a great job helping over. Kuminga's just a tough athlete to stop at the rim, right? Okay, so what now? Now we're going to get into the screening portion of the proceedings. And what I want you guys to pay special attention to is where Gary Payton is setting these screens. He's setting these screens exceptionally high up the court, which puts Şengün in a tough spot. Şengün is much better at being able to like show and recover, right? But if you set the screens really high up on the court, it's going to allow these guys to get downhill against him a little bit easier. So here, because the screen is set so high up the court, and because Gary Payton, let's be honest here, sets a moving screen and doesn't get called for it. And if you don't get called for it, cool. It means that Şengün can't really show and recover here. He has to really play in drop where he's not as good defensively. And that's just a hard guard. So here now, Gary Payton's on the ball. Now we're getting into like our split cut action, right? Where Payton's going to set this, screen here. Curry can either come around this way or he can back cut it depending on how the defense is playing him. He sets up Van Vliet really nicely. Fakes like he's coming around this way, then jabs to the rim. Jabs like he's going to the three-point line, cuts to the rim. Şengün has to go with him here. And then Fred goes with him. But this is the problem of Gary Payton. If he actually has the ball, you can feel okay. You can feel pretty okay about him shooting. But if he's screening, and again, Şengün here tries to play closer to the level on the screen, right? But again, look at how high Payton is setting the screen. This is just a lot of space for Şengün to deal with here. And he tries. He gives good effort. He just can't wall up and get in front of Steph. Again, another screen. Another one really high up on the court. Dylan Brooks, head going back, trying to draw a foul. And now we're just driving again. And he goes through Şengün, gets the offensive rebounds. This was the point where I think they probably should have pulled Şengün, maybe even after the last Curry layup. But they don't. Another one. Now Şengün basically in full drop here. He says to Jabari, stay with Gary Payton. We're switching this. Look, that's a shot that they're comfortable giving up. But it still goes in, right? I thought the Warriors did a great job just absolutely taking advantage of what the Rockets were trying to do defensively. And this is why, even though he has been better this year on defense, he has been much better this year on defense. In playoff settings, I still have some questions. Because I do think that you can do things like this, where you set screens very high up the court, put them in space, and make him guard in space and see what happens. Here, this one's just kind of funky because the camera kind of screwed us here. But again, very high up the court. Şengün kind of at the three-point level. He goes for the ball against Steph. Can't reach against Steph. That's a bad idea. Van Vliet doesn't have the leverage here. Curry's able to go around, score at the rim. Big time bucket. And then this one, why did I grab this one? Oh, this is just another Warrior split cut. Just split action, right? So Warriors have been doing this for years. This is like the more traditional way that you do it, where Lindy acts like he's going to set a screen and cut. Buddy Hield's going to come around for a three, puts a ton of pressure on these two defenders, Tari and Amen here. Difficult spot. Buddy doesn't need long. Tari does about as good of a job as you can do on that one. And then this one, 1 point game after a Şengün bucket at the rim. Dylan does a great job staying in front of Stephen Curry here. Look at that loose ball. Look at that loose ball get. Beats Kuminga to it. And man, it just kind of says a lot to me about these two and where Jalen Green has improved and where I worry a little bit about Jonathan Kuminga. This ball, for all intents and purposes, is rolling to Kuminga. It is going that way. He has leverage on Jalen Green. Jalen just out hustles him. He gets on the ground first. That is an A+ from Jalen Green there. And Kuminga fouls him. You've got Kevon Looney jumping on at the end. Just nothing. And then finally, this play, I mean, just look at the Rockets here. They do an amazing job. You can see Brooks is like kind of quarterbacking this, it feels like to me. He switches out onto Hield. Then you've got these two. Amen communicates a switch where he's going to be on. Who is that? Is that Kuminga? And Tari's going to deal with Steph. Or Tari's going to deal with Draymond, who we know is going to Steph. Tari does a great job forcing Steph away from the rim here with 3.5 seconds left. And then just the recovery here from Jabari is what's sick. I mean, Jabari like kind of falls asleep momentarily here. I don't know if falling asleep is right, but he ball watches here for a split second. And this is a long recovery to block this shot. Gets out to him, blocks it, finishes the game, zeros on the clock. Warriors are done in the in-season tournament. Rockets still have a chance to play for the NBA Cup. But there's a lot going on there, right? There's a lot going on in terms of playing non-shooters, the importance of playing non-shooters, the importance of having a plan, really, for playing non-shooters. You can point to the fact that, oh, yeah, like Steve Kerr, like he figured out what he had to do. He adjusted. In a game that the Rockets won by 1 point, they outscored the Warriors with Gary Payton on the court by 14 in this one. And that's basically because the Warriors did not have a plan in the first half for what Gary Payton II was going to do on offense. And it let Houston off the hook. And it let them just use a significant sag-off help defender the entire time. They made it easy on the Rockets, I felt like. And the Rockets were incredible defensively and deserve an immense amount of credit. But then they had a plan. And I think it shows some of the worries that you will see with Alperen Şengün in the playoffs, right? Teams are absolutely going to look at this tape. Oklahoma City, you damn well better believe, is going to watch this tape. And they are going to try and attack Şengün in a very similar way. Super high screens with Isaiah Hartenstein out on the court. Screens are going to be 35, 40 feet away from the rim. And then when they go small, which they will, that'll be an absolute thing to watch for. I'm very interested. Very, very interested. Fantastic basketball game, though. Fantastic basketball game.